This is exactly where you're meant to be, Josh. Listening to Hoops on Sports 1440. We come to you, of course, on the radio waves, on the internet, sports1440.ca, and on YouTube. And Josh, you got to help me out. How do you find us on YouTube?
On YouTube, you can find us at Sports 1440 AM. That's right.
Okay.
With the likes of Carius, Low Tide, Gregor, Hallie and Douglas, the most famous show of them all, Fantasy Frenzy. We're all there. So you can find us. We're streaming there right now.
You know, that's such an elite lineup. I feel like I'm in an all-star game now.
Yeah, that is the all-star of all-star games.
All-star of all-star games. This at the upper echelons of this industry. Welcome. I'm Paul Sir. I'm your host here on Hoop City, along with the great Josh Fenwick, self-professed great Josh Fenwick. I'm glad that you're here today. Our text line, if you have any thoughts, give us a shout over at 833-401-1440, 833-401-1440. I have kind of a weird poll question I put out there today. This is really delving into, Josh, basketball history. So why don't you share our poll question with our listeners and our viewers?
Absolutely. Our poll question today is, who's better, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Nikola Jokic, or Hakeem Olajuwon?
Again, we talk about esteemed company, but it is ancient history relative to the NBA in many respects, especially when you talk about Wilt and Bill. But I want to give you a little context as you make your decisions about who might be at the top of this esteemed list. Wilt Chamberlain in 61-62, I believe, averaged 50.4 points per game, averaged 48.5 minutes per game. Now, Josh, think of that in terms of what's going on with load management, injuries. Wilt's playing in Converse. Now, they didn't have defensive 3 seconds. Granted, they didn't have the three-point line. Granted, they did, however, play 48 minutes. They did, however, have a 24-second shot clock. And of course, different era, different abilities. Wilt was a man amongst boys. We know that. But 50.4 points a game, 48.5 minutes a game. He played every minute of every game. He played 82 games. Think about that, Josh.
Yeah, I know. Ridiculous. Didn't you have you might have brought this up. Sorry, I got a lot going on back here. Didn't he average 48.5 minutes a game for an entire season?
You were busy.
Sorry. My apologies. My apologies.
Okay.
My apologies.
No, and I appreciate how much you listen, how well you listen to me. And I know you've got a
you
ton
and the
going
ladies both, Paul. You and the ladies both.
You've heard the comment before. Bill Russell, 11 championships in 13 years with the Boston Celtics. He was the player coach for the last 2 world championships that the Boston Celtics won. Nobody has come even close to Bill Russell in terms of championship pedigree, championship accomplishments. Is that enough to be the best of this 4? Hakeem Olajuwon, the dream, the best footwork ever for a big man when he played for Houston. Won championships there, won 2 championships. Now you've got Nikola Jokic. Now, Nikola Jokic today, I think he's the most sophisticated, the most advanced post player of all time. Definitely. Does that make him the greatest? Now, he's still in the midst of his career. The others that we're mentioning here, Hakeem still works with and coaches big guys in the league. He's still active around the NBA. We unfortunately have lost Wilt and Bill. But their contribution to the development of the game of basketball is unbelievable. So I think it's a compelling question. I really do. And I'm curious to see what you come up with, what our listeners and our viewers come up with in terms of who you think the greatest of all time is. And Josh, how can they vote?
They can vote on our X account, Hoop City Show at Hoop City Show. You can go to X, the Everything app. It's all happening on X, and get your votes in.
Okay, that's great. Get on X. Let us know. I'm really looking forward to hearing what our very, very bright listeners and viewers think about this particular question. We have a great show today, Josh. Alan Horton, the longtime voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves play-by-play, will be joining us, and we're going to dive into at 10:20 what's going on with the Wolves, because they're off to a start that I think is surprising to a lot of people, and not necessarily, in fact, not at all for the right reasons. 10-8, they go tonight against another 10-8 team in the Phoenix Suns, so that'll be an interesting matchup. We're also going to be talking to the head coaches of the University of Alberta Golden Bears and Pandas. We're going to have Jeff Pippis, the first-year new coach, former Golden Bear player. He's going to be joining us along with Scott Edwards, longtime coach of the University of Alberta Pandas. Both are nationally ranked. They're both out in lovely Manitoba right now playing their games. So they're going to be joining us in our second segment today. And then our deep dive is with Ben Golliver of the Washington Post. If you've ever listened to or followed our show, you know I love talking with Ben. But more than that, I know you love listening to Ben. And today is a can't miss discussion. Ben and I really went into the weeds yesterday. We got a lot of great content for you to listen to. You're going to hear some interesting and in-depth and intelligent analysis by the great Ben Golliver. So make sure you listen to the deep dive. That'll be at the top of the hour. Let's go 3 from deep. Josh, are you okay now? Do you have time? I know you're busy.
I got all the time in the world for you, Paul.
Okay, I know you're over there juggling chainsaws on a unicycle. So,
well, it's only a unicycle. Could have no wheels.
We're going to throw the flaming torches in a bit later.
Absolutely. All right, 3 from deep. Our first question is, what are the reasons for the Raptors' improvements so far this season? And now, Paul, I'm going to have to add a little something on here.
Please.
So we got a text here from GJ. Says, has BI3 been the piece that puts this Raptors team to another level, or has the progression of young players like Scotty and Grady pushed them to being such a competitive team? Love the show, GJ.
Thank you, GJ. Love the fact that you're listening. Love the fact that you messaged us. I think yes to both of your observations. Certainly Scotty's improvement. It's great to see Grady Dick, who had a bit of a rough start out of the gate, starting to gain his confidence, gain his footing, seems to be getting some sense of where he fits on this team and how he can be contributing most effectively to this team. So yes, those players are making a difference, but it needs to be said quickly. RJ Barrett, my gosh, they're having great seasons, but Brandon Ingram, that is a difference maker. You now have a player who is gifted at creating his own shot. And I can't stress the importance enough of a team having a weapon, but even better weapons, which they now have. Scotty Barnes is getting better at creating his own shot deep into the shot clock. Same with Quickly, same with RJ Barrett. They're not at the level, I don't believe, of Brandon Ingram, but they are capable late shot clock creators. And you need that if you're going to be a competitive team. And I think the Raptors have really found a groove out of the gate. They're healthy for the first time in a long time. You've got players primarily healthy. RJ had a little bit of a setback recently, but Quickly, who missed a ton of games last year, Ingram, who didn't play at all last year, they're all healthy, contributing. And then you add in the stability that Jakob Poeltl, who I don't think if you locked Jakob in a gym for a month, he'd hit a 3, but that doesn't even matter. He has great mitts, great hands. He catches everything off the screen and roll. He does a good job of protecting the rim. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's a great screener. And I can't overemphasize that as well. You need great screeners on your team to help free your creative teammates up. They've been able to do that. They've been getting good contributions off the bench, notably Grady Dick, but many others. So I think the combination of the developing chemistry, but the talent level that they have this year with shot creators, and they're an excellent defensive team. That a strategy that Masai Ujiri, the departed Masai Ujiri, had of long, athletic defenders, somewhat positionless with the exception of Jakob Pertl and Quickly. But the other three are very interchangeable parts on this particular team. So they're good on offense. They're good on defense. They've got creators. They've got chemistry. Right now, the sky's blue, the sun's shining, and the birds are chirping. So if they stay healthy and continue on this path, the Raptors are going to have a really, really nice season. How about number 2?
Number 2. What to learn from last night's results? What did you learn from last night's results?
Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder, with one loss, I don't know that they'll ever lose again. Although Phoenix they played them really tough last night. Only lost by 2. But Jason Williams is back with the Oklahoma City Thunder, so their all-star forward from last year is back in the lineup, back in the rotation. They're only going to get better again, if that's even possible. SGA, another standout performance. I believe he had 37, leads the way. They beat a much improved, much tougher, much more energetic, much more optimistic Phoenix Suns teams, who, by the way, they will square off against in the first round in the sudden death Emirates Cup. That quarterfinals is all set, whatever the heck the Emirates Cup really is. So number 1, we saw the Thunder get a bit better again. This was interesting, Josh. The San Antonio Spurs beat the Denver Nuggets last night, but there was a big missing piece for the Spurs. This is surprising. And I think for all of us, myself included, who thought that the Denver Nuggets were going to be improved this year, and I think in some respects they have. Nikola Jokic has been the best player in the league. As great as SGA, as great as Luka have been playing, I think a lot of people, myself included, believe that Jokic, if you pick today, he would be the MVP. But they've lost a couple of games lately to teams you wouldn't expect. Certainly you wouldn't expect them to lose to Sacramento. But even last night, without Wemby, the Spurs beat the Nuggets. And I think Jokic had what I would call a pretty pedestrian outing for him without Wembanyama being in the lineup for San Antonio. So I think it sort of remains to be seen how good Denver really is. I think that was their 4th or 5th loss. So, I mean, it's early in the season. They're still going to be getting better. But Thomas, the guy that they got in their trade that they thought was going to improve them, really hasn't been able to deliver thus far. And both Ben Golliver and I get into that in our upcoming discussion. But a little bit surprising on the part of the Denver Nuggets. So those should be my 2 takeaways from last night. Nothing really super profound in there. Bucks lost to the Knicks, but the Bucks are going to lose to a lot of people. As great as Antetokounmpo is, the Bucks team is not very good. New York Knicks, they look good. I like them. Brunson, again, he's just such a crafty, clever guy, and he had a wonderful night outing last night as well. So great to see us getting back into full swing after a day off for Thanksgiving, and some good matchups coming up. And the final
question for you, Paul, is Luka able to catch SGA and Jokic in the MVP race?
Well, number 1, if you picked for the Emirates Cup, and again, there's this little thing they've got going on. You see all the gaudy, crazy-looking courts right now for the Emirates Cup. You can always tell an Emirates Cup game because they're playing on these very, very interesting variations of basketball courts. But now the Emirates Cup going in, as I mentioned, into the quarterfinals. That's going to start on December 9th. But if you had to pick an MVP in the preliminary round right now, it would be Luka Doncic. In the Emirates Cup games, he's been the best player in the NBA thus far. Can he catch SGA and Jokic for the MVP over the course of the 82-game season? I'm not going out on a limb, I don't believe, by saying maybe, just maybe. And I would not count Luka out. He leads the NBA in scoring right now. Now, that's not necessarily the reason you pick an MVP, especially when you have high volume scorers that you're competing against, like SGA, who's on the best team in the league, although the Lakers have been very, very good out of the gate. And LeBron James, that's a topic for another discussion, is fitting in really well with Austin Reeves playing, having a career year, obviously, on top of a career year by Doncic. And I mean, think of that, Josh. I'm talking about Doncic having a career year. That's really incredible. And you've got, for the first few games, LeBron James willingly accepting his role as the third guy in the rotation. How strong does that make the Los Angeles Lakers, who also have a revitalized Rui Hachimura, having the best year of his career thus far, and even DeAndre Ayton. And when they signed DeAndre Ayton, everybody said, I don't know about this. This guy's a head case. This guy's a locker room problem. So far, so good. He seems to be taking some inspiration. So can he, Luka, that is, catch SGA, catch Jokic for the season MVP? I wouldn't call it a long shot. I would say he's third place. I wouldn't call him a distant third. I would say it's a Jokic, SGA, Luka race right now, with Jokic having the nod, SGA being, in my opinion, in second place. And then below that, you've got Luka having a phenomenal season. And it's not just stats, Josh. It's the Lakers winning. And I think that's the key. The Lakers are playing better basketball as a team with the style of play that JJ Redick is really getting out of this Laker lineup. And it's really impressive. It's actually a very fun team to watch. A lot more fun, I thought, than when Doncic was in Dallas. I don't know if you share that opinion or not, Josh.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I honestly, I think the gap between Jokic and everyone else is a little larger. Yeah, again, we're early in the season.
I get it.
We're early in the season, but what he's been doing, like when people put out things that say, well, he's the first player to ever do it, or first player since Wilt, which, by the way, to SGA's credit, he has tied Wilt Chamberlain for the second longest streak of consecutive 20-plus point performances with 62.
Incredible.
That being said,
that's incredible.
It is incredible. Every other Jokic game is, he is the first center to do this, or he is the first NBA player to ever do this, or he's the second one since some guy that played in the 40s, or like since Wilt Chamberlain, who did it 9,000 times. But Jokic did it again. So basically things that are unprecedented to what everyone in this everyone in the world, except for you, have seen. Like, it's ludicrous to me that I get to be able to watch a guy this good and have to think to myself that he's not the MVP.
I agree.
But I think Luka is closer to SGA.
I agree, but I'm narrowing the gap a little bit because of wins and losses. If there is an interesting point of discussion, and that's the way I would frame it, it's only a point of discussion as the season rolls on. Now, you take Jokic off the Denver Nuggets, they're a sub-500 team. But with Jokic, they might be a contender. So as the season wears on, if Denver has the season we all expect them to, if they're healthy, if they're able to win games in the volumes that we expect them to, I fully agree. Jokic is a very, very special player, a post point guard, ridiculous versatility. He's really incredible to watch. It's incredible to watch him dismantle other teams through the variety of offensive skills that he puts on display, whether it's scoring, passing, rebounding, the touch passes he makes, everything like that. So I'm glad you really appreciate what you just described. Being able to watch history unfold is always fun. And that's where I appreciate the opportunity I had to watch Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain square off, and then watch all of the generations up through to today, and to see the game evolving in the way that it has. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to welcome Alan Horton, the play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we're going to talk about the Wolves' woes in the early part of the season. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick, here on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
Sports 1440, Edmonton's sports leader, welcomes you to the basketball show.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry with 0.6 of a second remaining.
The basketball show is powered by the 3x3 Basketball Association and the Hoop City 3x3 at West Edmonton Mall, July 31st to August 3rd.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Our 50% off Christmas sale is back at Coleman's Greenhouse. Anita here, and right now, all Christmas-themed gifts and ornaments are half price. Plus, stock up on yummy jams and our own pickled carrots, beets, and sauerkraut. Our Christmas shelves are also filled with delicious German cookies, Stollen, and gingerbread treats. So bring the whole family. Visit our turtle and koi ponds while you're here and enjoy. We're open 6 days a week. Take exit 49 off the Henday.
Just Google KUHLMANNS.
Align Custom Skate Performance, where precision meets passion.
When you hit the ice, it's all about you and your skates. The stride, the feel, the glide, the power, the performance. At its core, skating is about movement. You use the thin metal blades of your skates to fly across the ice. Every step, turn, and edge is controlled and deliberate. Raw, powerful, explosive. It's about making difficult things look easy. Control, speed, and purpose under pressure. So why trust your skates to a grinding machine? Or even worse, a tournament parent in the dark parking lot. At Aligned Custom Skate Performance in Sherwood Park, the art of skate fitting and sharpening is all customized to the athlete. Artisanally handcrafted and 100% human. For you or your athletes, book an appointment today and experience the difference.
Align Custom Skate Performance, where precision meets passion.
Visit AlignedSkate.com to learn more.
It's the most festive sale of the season, the Big Bin Sale at Metal Supermarkets. December 1st through 6th, they're clearing out everything in the off-cut bins at 30% off. A wide assortment of miscellaneous metal, 30% off. And remember, metal makes a great stocking stuffer, right, kids? Now go build your dad a nice shelf for the garage. The Big Bin Sale starts December 1st at Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for Southside, West End, metalsupermarkets.com.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back. Hoop City, Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. Joining you, the music today, Josh, are songs I doubt you've heard. Maybe you have, but these are crooners. I would call them crooners, dudes from 1968.
Well, I've definitely heard that one. That's the slow down version of what Blue Swede did in the 80s.
Okay.
So,
well, BJ Thomas, vocals off the charts. And so I'm going to educate you and our listeners again on some great music from the 60s. Now, making great music. I don't know Alan Horton, radio play-by-play, longtime voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, if the T-Wolves right now are making the kind of music that the Minnesota fans really are excited about.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a rough stretch there, Paul. Good to be on with you. But,
great to hear you.
I think it's early in the season. I actually think coming off that Oklahoma City game the night before Thanksgiving was I think the Wolves felt pretty good about the way they played, and I did too. Much better than the losses against Phoenix and Sacramento, and so they're still in a good spot. 7th in the West, 10-8. It's a better start than they had last year. So it's important to keep things in perspective, even though it might be a little disappointing to have these 3 losses in a row.
Nickeil Alexander Walker's departure. Alan, early in the season, and as you correctly point out, it is early. Has there been much of a gap that not having Nikhil in the lineup? Have they found the people to replace him yet, or is that still a work in progress?
It's a little bit of a work in progress, but it's going to be between, Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon, two younger guys that have been in the Wolves system for a couple of years. TJ Shannon had a big game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had missed 3 weeks with a foot injury, so that kind of sidelined him a little bit. Jalen Clark has been up and down in his performance. He's more of a defensive specialist, so I think the Wolves feel really good. They knew they were not going to be able to keep Alexander Walker, who got a big free agent deal for Atlanta. The team was extremely happy for him, but the Wolves knew the money was running short when you extend Naz Reid and extend Julius Randle in the offseason.
DiVincenzo at point guard, Mike Conley coming off the bench more often than not. How are you feeling about that? How do you see that impacting the Wolves' chemistry so far?
Yeah, the numbers are pretty good with that starting lineup with Dante and Ant, and then Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, and Rudy Gobert. So that unit has played really well together. I think where some issues pop up is late in games, and we've seen this now for 3 straight games. The Timberwolves have either had a lead or been tied in the final 3 minutes of each of their last 3 games, and they've watched opponents go on a 9-0 run in the case of Phoenix, 12-2 run to force overtime in Sacramento. Then the Thunder 12-4 to end out that game on Wednesday night. And over those stretches, the biggest issue for the Timberwolves in close games has been turnovers. Their turnover rate is the highest of any of the 30 NBA teams in close games. And so that's where I think you miss the sure-handedness of a Mike Conley. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's like, Mike is not at the point in his career where he can, give you all the minutes that you'd like to get out of him. He's not the Mike Conley of 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so I think it makes sense to put Dante in there. I like the thinking, but somehow you have to get better at ball handling late in games. That's when the game speeds up, especially on the road. The crowd gets into it. One bad thing happens. You can't let those things snowball. And right now they're snowballing.
It's interesting to watch the last couple of minutes with the Wolves because you can see almost at this juncture of the season, and I think you really make the correct point in your comments, Alan, is that at this point in the season they are unsure how to handle that pressure in those last 2 minutes of a game situation. But if you don't take the time and you don't let the mistakes happen and see if this unit, as it presently is structured, can learn from their mistakes and get better at handling it. The gamble I'm imagining for Finch and his coaching staff is that this will pay dividends down the road as you get closer and closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that that theory is sort of typified by the play of Anthony Edwards. So he's basically turns into your point guard late in those games. And so if you can ride through these rough patches where he starts to figure things out, you're going to be better off in the long term. This is something that Edwards is going to continue to evolve in his career, and he's going to have the ball in his hands more and more. And so he has to be able to handle these situations. And, going through what he's seeing these last 3 games, you hope that you come through on the other side, and maybe later in the season, maybe the turnovers just aren't an issue late in games because he's gone through them now. So I think that's the biggest hope.
I'm talking to Alan Horton, the play-by-play radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Alan, is Anthony Edwards wired in such a way that he takes these kind of setbacks, if I can put that more vernacularly correct, even if that's right. But is he the type of player that's wired in such a way that he's learning from this? Or some criticism of Anthony is that he's too casual and sometimes doesn't take certain aspects of his performance seriously enough. Is that fair? Where do you think he falls in with your experience of watching him night in and night out in terms of how he handles mistakes like that he's working through right now?
He's still so young, and he's only in his 6th year, and he's going to be better. And so by definition, he's going to continue to evolve, and he's going to hone his game even more. And so I think one of the areas where he can hone his game even more is to bring – I thought he had his best game of the season against Oklahoma City. He didn't have the highest point total he's had in a game this year. He didn't shoot the ball as well as he has in other games this year. But I just thought going up against the number 1 team in the league, the number 1 defense in the league, and the number 1 player in the league, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I thought Edwards made the right decision more often than in any game this season. I thought he kept the Wolves in the game. Sometimes your numbers aren't going to look pretty shooting wise, especially against the best defense in the league. I thought he was tremendous in his decision making, and that kind of focus and right decisions and balancing your scoring versus setting up teammates. I think the consistency of that is an area where he can grow, especially, the Wolves had these games. There was a stretch of a couple of weeks where almost every night you're playing a Dallas, a Washington, a Sacramento, a Utah, teams that are struggling. And I think he needs to bring some consistency to whoever he's playing. I think that's been a focus this year. He said coming into the season, hey, I want to try to, I'll motivate myself by just trying to score as many points as I can against these guys. And while that's, partially tongue in cheek, you want to play at this really, you look at the great players in this league, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He brings it every single night. You look at his numbers, doesn't matter who he's playing. That's why the Thunder have been so good. I think there's some consistency from Ant that can reach a higher level. I think like these last 3 games, he's been really dialed in. Can he keep this going? I think he will, because he generally rises to the occasion. And the Wolves are playing some really tough teams coming up here. You got Boston today. You got San Antonio coming up tomorrow. Then a little road trip to New Orleans. But the schedule definitely ramps up here over the next few weeks.
The struggle the Wolves have had early in the season is against teams with winning records, obviously. And as you said, that encouraging development on the part of Ant in terms of his decision-making, his effectiveness, not necessarily the huge point totals he's very, very capable of. And I know that we'll see throughout the course of the year. Those are great steps for the Wolves. How about the play of Randall thus far? From my vantage point, I would say he's having a real strong start to the season. What about from your vantage point?
Yeah, no doubt. I think a career best start to the season. He's never had a start to the season like this. His numbers have tailed off a little bit during this 3-game losing streak, but he has shot the ball so efficiently. He's been so good in isolation. You don't want to run a ton of that and get too dependent on guys just going one-on-one, because you do have some ISO players in Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. You'd love to see a balance with that ISO versus, working the ball around. And his assists are up, and he continues to lead the team in assisted 3-pointers. So he's setting up teammates for those high percentage, efficient shots in those threes, especially corner threes. He's been terrific, and he kind of picked up where he left off in the postseason last year, and really down the stretch where he was dominant, and he's dominant inside. And like I said, his numbers have dipped a little bit the last 3 games, but hopefully that's just a blip on the radar, and he gets back to the numbers we've seen already this season. Because when he's doing that, the offense is just through the roof for Minnesota. Now he's not, his defensive numbers aren't as great, but when you pair him with Rudy Gobert, who does the opposite, his defensive numbers are second best in the NBA when you look at defensive rating. And those two really balance each other out, because Julius brings the offense, and in a very rudimentary summation, Julius brings the offense, Rudy brings the defense, and they kind of cancel each other out at the other end, or balance each other out. So it's been a really nice tandem inside.
Alan Horton, play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, joining us here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Alan, I want to jump I would like to jump over to a league level observation, and I look forward to your feedback on it. My observation is this: I think the NBA is more watchable this season than in recent memory for me. And one of the reasons is it's not just pace of play. It's not just better 3-point shooting. But what it is variety in style of team play. I think there is more variety in the NBA today than I've seen in recent memory. The Timberwolves are a very unique team. Chris Finch is a great coach. He has adapted the Wolves' style of play to fit their talent. But I think for quite a long time, teams were trying awfully hard to be the Golden State Warriors, for instance. Shoot lots of threes, play a specific type of way, play small ball, etc. But I think teams like Minnesota, certainly Oklahoma City, leads the way in terms of unique style of play. Eric Spoelstra in Miami, all of a sudden they're making the Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less group look slow in terms of the pace of play. Would you concur, because you've got the best seat in the house night in and night out, would you concur that the NBA has become more diverse in its style of play and it's becoming more and more interesting to watch?
Yeah, I think you have an accumulation of talent too in this league that I just think continues to rise. Every draft class we go through just adds to the talent base, and I just think it gets spread out through these 30 teams. So I think you've got so much talent on every team, and probably some guys that a lot of fans haven't even heard of that could come in and have an impact on the game. I think there are different styles being played. Miami's a great example. Everybody sort of uses pick and roll to get their offense going. Well, they're running the fewest pick and rolls of any team in the league by a wide margin. You got teams wanting to play fast, other ones playing slow. Boston will play today. They're 30th in pace of play. They want to slow things down. They want to grind it out. That suits their limited roster without Jason Tatum and Drew Holiday and Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. And then you got other teams that are also, one of the trends early on was picking up full court or picking up just beyond half court and forcing teams to kind of slow things down or speed them up maybe. And I think that's played a role in it as well. And I think it certainly helps when you have huge performances in close games. And we had a ton of those early on. That first opening week of the season, there were 3 or 4 guys that went for 50 or more. You had all these tight games going right down to the wire. I think that always boosts the excitement. And it's it's interesting too, because free throws are up, and you would think that would slow things down, and maybe that would just bog the viewing experience and the watching experience down. But everything seems to be going pretty well, and you've got the main guys on every team really putting up pretty good numbers, seemingly on a nightly basis. Every time I think, I see Ant have a game with these, he's gone for 30 or more in 8 of his 14 games. And I thought, oh, that's got to be a kind of a lot around the league. It's like, no, that doesn't even rank in the top 5. Like Shea is just scoring 30 on a nightly basis. So many guys are just putting up points. And so it's, I do think it's a high quality, high level of basketball. And I do think it's pretty entertaining.
It really is. Minnesota fans, how have they been this year for the Wolves? Have they been as enthusiastic as they've been over the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really started to build. I mean, that's what happens when you make back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. Sometimes those crowds take a little while to develop, but once you are a consistent winner, people start making an occasion to come out and see them play because they know they're going to get a good product and get a good viewing experience. And the Wolves have kind of helped that out too by going back to the Prince uniforms. The purple uniforms are back. They got a matching court with that. They go back to the throwback black jerseys with the Christmas trees on them. They'll wear those tonight. So those have been really popular too. They got a new lighting system at Target Center and all these different floors, 4 different floors if you include the cup floor. So it's really been, teams are doing this across the league, not only with all the jerseys, but all the courts, and making it a must-see experience to come out. And so the fans have responded big time so far this year.
Well, Alan Horton, nobody does it better than you in terms of calling play-by-play. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. Look forward to talking again soon. Hope you have a great holiday season. I hope we talk before Christmas, but if we don't, Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody north of the border. Appreciate all the support. And Paul, we'll talk soon.
Look forward to it. Alan Horton, play-by-play radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, joining us here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk University of Alberta basketball with Scott Edwards with the Pandas and Jeff Pippas with the Golden Bears.
What keeps Alberta business moving? It's pallets. Whether you're shipping, manufacturing, or looking for in-house storage solutions, Hi, it's Andrew with the Pallet Recycler here in Edmonton, and we've been providing reliable, affordable, recycled, and custom pallets for local businesses for the past 30 years. Contact the Pallet Recycler at 825-474-1981 to find out why recycled pallets are the most cost-effective way to move and store your product. Learn about our recycling program as well at thepalletrecycler.ca.
It's the most festive sale of the season, the Big Bin Sale at Metal Supermarkets. December 1st through 6th, they're clearing out everything in the off-cut bins at 30% off. A wide assortment of miscellaneous metal, 30% off. And remember, metal makes a great stocking stuffer, right, kids? Now go build your dad a nice shelf for the garage. The Big Bin Sale starts December 1st at Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for Southside, West End, metalsupermarkets.com.
This month in Sports History Moment is brought to you by Discount Diesel Parts.
November 11th, 1984. The Flyers halted the Oilers' 15-game unbeaten streak to start the season with a 7-5 win. Wayne Gretzky scored 2 goals for Edmonton, but a goal by Mark Howe that broke a 4-4 tie propelled the Flyers to victory. The Oilers got the ultimate revenge 6 months later when they whipped Philadelphia in 5 games to win the Stanley Cup.
Hi, folks. This is Big Al from Discount Diesel Parts. Interstate McBee is a highly respected manufacturer with over 70 years' experience in the heavy-duty diesel engine parts industry. And as an authorized dealer, we've been serving Western Canada with those high-quality engine parts for highway trucks, farm machinery, heavy equipment, transit, and marine, and at a great price, too. Reach us at discountdiesel.ca and know that Discount Diesel's got the parts to get it done.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
As we continue with our 1968 male crooner celebration today. That's a great Johnny Cash, who performed that live at Folsom Prison in front of many guys that were in there for all the wrong reasons. So that's a great story in and of itself. But speaking of great stories, it's been the start to the season for the University of Alberta Golden Bear men's basketball team under new head coach Jeff Pippis, a former Golden Bear player himself. And Jeff joins us from Winnipeg today. Jeff, how are you today?
Hey, Paul. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Trying to bounce back from not a great continuation of our pretty early start yesterday, but that's part of the gig. So back at it again today.
Talk about the game last night. You lost 81-71. What were the dynamics in the game, and what led to the Bears falling short?
Winnipeg's really good is a start. I thought our transition defense lacked. I thought we lacked some areas of concentration defensively and with the scout. Fixable errors, but kind of the theme of the season for us is just trying to put together a 40-minute consistent effort. We've had some great moments early on with good results, but a lack of consistency. And I think it's a part of learning a new group and a new voice at the front of the room. So it's all a learning process, and it's early in the year, and we lost to a really good team, but I think they're fixable errors, and we have a chance to come back and get a better result tonight. So,
well, as I mentioned, Jeff, you're in year one with the Golden Bears. Talk about, I'd like to first go into your playing career with the Bears and what your journey has been like since your playing days.
So I came to U of A in 2016. Sort of a funny story. I reached out to Barnaby and I applied for the Masters of Coaching program at the U of A, which is great and taught me a lot about what I'm doing now. And Barnaby basically didn't know whether I was going to play or coach to start. So I came out and had about a 2-week tryout period. And then eventually we decided I was probably good enough to play. So I played from 2016 to 2018, had a bunch of great teammates. We had a bunch of success. Won the CanWest title my first year. We finished second in the conference the second year, went to nationals both years. So since then, I finished my master's of coaching. I moved back to Victoria. My wife's family's from the island, so we moved to the island. I did my teaching degree at UVic, and then got into teaching and coaching at the CCAA level at Camosun College. Did that for 3 years. Was a high school coach for 2 years in there as well. And then when the job came open, obviously, like, coaching full-time has been a dream of mine. So threw my hat in the ring and was lucky enough that Leah and the folks at Alberta gave me a chance. And I'm really excited to be back and have a chance to work with a bunch of great people and a great program with awesome tradition and a place that meant a lot to me in my life. So I'm kind of still pinching myself that I get this opportunity. I'm really grateful, but yeah, it's an awesome opportunity, an awesome gig. And I'm hoping we can carry on the success of a program that has done a lot of winning and had a lot of success on and off the court.
Well, Jeff, we're glad to have you back in our midst. Now, do you and your wife pinch yourself a little bit when it's minus 17? Now, you're out in Winnipeg. Because you're out in do you miss the Victoria weather?
I'm looking out the window of the hotel room. It's snowing here. It's, to be honest, from September to March, I'm kind of in my own bubble anyway.
That's true.
You're at the gym or you're watching film. Like, I might miss the odd Sunday walk by the water in Victoria, but it's I don't have to work 2 jobs to do the job I love to do now. So it's a good trade-off for us.
Well, that was definitely tongue-in-cheek on my part. We're excited you're back. Talk about the shift from coaching at the CCAA level to coaching at the youth sports level. What are the major differences?
From my life balance perspective, I don't have to teach full time and then try to do the job of a CCAA coach full time. And I think it speaks to the importance of the people working at the grassroots level in basketball in this country. I mean, high school coaches, I was a high school coach before a CCAA coach, and that's all volunteer. And if you want to run a quality program, you have to put in considerable time and effort and hours. And I think those people are largely undervalued for the time and work they put in that make people like the job I'm in right now, our job's way easier. I'm working with people who've been coached by people and who know how to play already, and now I get to fine tune. But people like George Hoyt and Terry Ainley, like, I don't know, throughout Edmonton, throughout the country, really, the grassroots people put in all of this time and effort and work and make the players into what they are. And then I get the fun job of having it be my full-time job to do it. But the CCAA was that sort of balancing act of trying to do the best job possible to run a great program at Camosun while also working a full-time gig. So that was difficult. As far as the transition in terms of the level, obviously is different. I think we have much better athletes here. The size and speed. My thoughts on the CCAA game is it tended to be players who were one important skill away from being at the U Sport level, whether it was they were a little undersized, or they didn't shoot it quite well enough, or sometimes it was an academic issue. It's a reasonably similar level, and I think some of the top CCAA schools can certainly compete with the lower level U Sport schools. But at a place like U of A, we really have people who are going to project to be professional basketball players down the line and who have the big picture in addition to the academic piece, especially at the U of A. So I'm really lucky to work with the people I get to. But Camosun shaped me, and the guys there made my early coaching journey much easier than it could have been, for sure.
Very well put, Jeff. I think you contextualized everything extremely well. Who do you play tonight? What time? And how can people watch you?
We've got Winnipeg again tonight, second night of a back-to-back. We are 5 p.m. Winnipeg time, so we're 4 p.m. Alberta time. All of our games are always broadcast on CanadaWest.tv. It is a subscription, but the job they do with the broadcast throughout the league is really high quality. And I just think the U Sport level of basketball is really, really high, and it's a little bit undervalued. And people can get a look at people who are going to be professional basketball players. I know the community support in Edmonton is great, but there's a lot of good hoops going on that subscription. If you log in, you get the season pass. You can watch it all on demand. So it's a good thing. I'm obviously on there all the time. I'm a bit of a hoops obsessive, obviously, is my job, but I think there's a lot to it there that people can enjoy.
Well, best of luck today. Go get them. Get back, back on the track that you've been on and that you want to get back on. Jeff, it's a pleasure talking to you, and we'll look forward to checking in with you again as well. All the best.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, Jeff Pippas, head men's basketball coach at the University of Alberta for the Golden Bears. Let's switch gears now and go over to the Pandas' longtime head coach, Scott Edwards. Scott, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on again, Paul. I appreciate it.
No, it's great to have you on. Talk about last night's game. Were you happy with the outcome?
Yeah, well, I think you're always happy when you win a basketball game, and on the road for sure. I think we had a great start to the game and a huge performance from Kia Easton and Hideo Hanma, and that was pretty fun to watch. So overall, pretty happy with the night.
Scott, you and I had the opportunity to talk at the Alberta Basketball Association 50th Gala, and you were telling me that you thought this was probably one of your better teams in your tenure with the Pandas. That certainly seems to be coming to fruition. Talk about what makes this team so special.
Yeah, I had high hopes for them, and so far I would say they're even exceeding what we thought they could accomplish so far this season. There's just a group of women that have been together a long time. They've been through a lot of big battles and have fought hard to stay together and stay true to each other and their commitment to their community. And I think the results on the floor are, the evidence is from the work they put into each other and the way they lean on each other, the way they support each other. Doesn't matter who the leading scorer is or who's a big name from one individual game. They just care about the result together, and that's really fun to watch and special to be around. And we're seeing the results on the court are speaking for just their commitment to each other right now. And obviously they're a talented group, but it has more to do with their desire and passion and love for each other and how they play together.
Well, Scott, I first had the opportunity to watch you coach when I started at Concordia many years ago. But one aspect of your coaching that I think has been consistent throughout your career is your emphasis on team culture and team bonding. You always have been, I think, way ahead of what people talk about right now, quite frankly. I think you really understood how important that was to building trust, to building cohesion. Talk about how important that is to you philosophically and how you impart those values on your teams.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that. It is a lot of work we put in. And I think, honestly, Paul, when I think back on our Concordia days or when I got started, to be frank, I was a really young coach who didn't have a lot of experience in the game other than as a high school player. So to talk to our athletes from the athlete perspective, I didn't really have a lot to share. But I could talk about the game and what it means to each other and why we love being on team sport and building community, and we could build from there. And then, as hopefully my basketball IQ got better as we went along too, that I think it's just been a staple to our the way we've run things and the way I've run things at these two schools, U of A and Concordia. And just the idea that, a collective group of people can do something exciting together if they're willing to put ego aside and put a little bit of their own needs aside and put it to the greater good, I think has always been something that I've strived for and wanted to impart. And, the team this year has really embraced all of this and really bought into it. And we have athletes on our team that could probably be at other places and have more accolades and points per game and rebounds per game and things like that, but they're willing to give up a little bit more to sacrifice that to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and it's fun to watch.
Scott Edwards, longtime head coach of the University of Alberta Women's Pandas program, joining us here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Scott, one other, I think, important area that you focus on is succession planning. And I'll make a statement. You tell me if this is accurate. This might be almost an ideal team for succession planning and building towards the future of experienced, hardened, cohesive veterans with young developmental talent that are integrating themselves into the Pandas culture. Fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. We targeted a few athletes last season to bring in this year that we knew, if they went other places, they're probably playing a heck of a lot more than they'd get the chance now, but we believed in them and they believed in what we were talking about the future would look like, and know that we needed to set up the program for success year after year after year. And that last year's recruiting class is outstanding, and they're going to be a huge part of our program for years to come. So excited of their development and their opportunity, and what a chance for them to learn from these veterans who've, they've been to nationals 3 times in a row, and hopefully they do the work enough to get back again this year. And they know what it takes to succeed at the highest level. And those youngsters are learning how to play like that and how to live like that daily, right? From school to the way they treat their body, the way they lift, the way they eat on the road and things like that. They're just doing a ton of things, a lot of learning. And what I love about the older group is that they're so willing to share their experiences and here's the things that worked for them or didn't work for them. And that mentorship is a huge part of what we do every day as well.
Now as I've been listening to you, Scott, I'm trying to formulate how to best phrase this. So I'm going to give it my best shot. So bear with me.
Okay. Sounds good.
In the midst of this insane sports culture with social media, flashing and crashing all around athletes, all the distractions of what it takes to be an athlete, a student athlete, NIL money down in the States, the rise of women's sports, the WNBA, and the good, the bad, the clumsiness that's gone along with the post Caitlin Clark coming into the league era. All this stuff's going on. Here you have the University of Alberta under Scott Edwards and his great coaching staff. Emphasis on academics, emphasis on team culture, emphasis on cohesion, emphasis on mentoring younger players. What I think you are, I really think, and this sounds like a dramatic term, but I really mean it sincerely, Scott. I really think your program and you personally, along with Lisa Tomaitis, are beacons in the world of women's sports because it's holistic, it's fulsome, it's whole person oriented. And I just have to share that because I don't think that's touched on often enough in sports. And what you're doing in this sport with this team is really remarkable.
A bit speechless. Thank you, Paul, for sharing that. I think I don't talk to Lisa about it a lot. We're too competitive right now, but
of course,
I think that if I look back on things, I just think that this is the way I want sports to look. And I can, being the head coach of a program, I can kind of get to choose what we all look like, right?
Right.
And how we act and how we treat each other and how we're remembered. And we talk to our athletes a lot about, to try to leave this place better than you found it. And there's a variety of ways. It could be, if like a Claire Signatovich a year ago playing pro in Germany, it can be the extraordinary academic success she had and showing everyone how hard you can work in school and what your rewards you can be because it's going to go off and do great things after she's finished playing pro. But it was also work ethic and all these other areas of her life that she showed these players. And that's just one example, but there's many of these women that have come through here that have lived the same way. And it just makes it more fun. And I think, to your comment about the rise of social media and the other distractions around our athletes, I think it comes down to human connection. And I know that our athletes crave that. And I think it's important for us to surround ourselves with people that are like-minded enough to just want something to be a part of. Right? And I think people forget to ask kids what they want to be a part of. and if they have the choice, they're going to want to be a part of a community that cares about them, that they feel safe in, that they feel respected for what they bring and are met where they are at the time, right? And we hope that all of our athletes, what they come in as an 18-year-old, and we hope they don't leave at 23 as the same person. They've got to grow and mature and have different hopes and dreams in life. And we just hope that we're hoping to make sure they're in an environment where they can achieve everything they want out of it at the best they can, and that we're going to celebrate them for it. And it's a lot of fun. I love this job. I love being around our athletes. I don't think the kids have changed that much. I think adults have changed around them, to be honest. And I think that it's a really fun place to get to work.
Well, Scott, best of luck tonight. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your thoughts, and continued ongoing success with for the rest of the season, and have a great holiday season as well.
Thanks, Paul. You as well.
Scott Edwards, head coach, University of Alberta Pandas, here on your sports leader, Sports 1440 Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. When we come back, it's going to be the deep dive with Ben Golliver. Must listen radio. Ben really, really nails it this week. So we'll be right back after these messages.
You're at home, in the car, or on the move. You're never more than a tap away from Sports 1440. Download the radio player or iHeart app today. So you can get all access anytime to Edmonton's only sports radio station, Sports 1440.
This month in Sports History Moment is brought to you by Discount Diesel Parts.
November 4th, 1989. Canadian decathlete Damian Warner is born in London, Ontario. At the 2020 Olympic Summer Games in Tokyo, he won the gold medal and became one of only 4 decathletes to reach 9,000 points in international competition. In 2021, he was awarded both the Lionel Conacher Award and the Lou Marsh Trophy, and was later inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame.
Hi, folks. This is Big Al from Discount Diesel Parts. Interstate McBee is a highly respected manufacturer with over 70 years' experience in the heavy-duty diesel engine parts industry. And as an authorized dealer, we've been serving Western Canada with those high-quality engine parts for highway trucks, farm machinery, heavy equipment, transit, and marine, and at a great price, too. Reach us at discountdiesel.ca and know that Discount Diesel's got the parts to get it done.
What keeps Alberta business moving? It's pallets, whether you're shipping, manufacturing, or looking for in-house storage solutions. Hi, it's Andrew with the Pallet Recycler here in Edmonton, and we've been providing reliable, affordable, recycled, and custom pallets for local businesses for the past 30 years. Contact the Pallet Recycler at 825-474-1981 to find out why recycled pallets are the most cost-effective way to move and store your product. Learn about our recycling program as well at thepalletrecycler.ca.
If you're looking for non-stop sports coverage, tune into Sports 1440, Edmonton's only sports radio station.
24/7 coverage comes at you with expert commentary, in-depth analysis,
And so much more.
We are Sports 1440.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free radio player app and listen wherever you go.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Josh, leave this on until we get to the Sweet Caroline line, because if of all the songs that you could hear at a sporting event, I don't think Neil Diamond and Sweet Caroline would be one that you would expect that the stands to erupt. I was at a Yankees Boston Red Sox first playoff game this year, and they play this song, and you got Yankee Stadium right after this. Dot, dot, dot. Everybody goes nuts. And that would be the last one. 1968, Men, the Crooners, here on Sports 1440 with Paul Sir. We're going to dive now into our deep dive with Ben Golliver of the Washington Post, NBA analyst. Ben is based in Los Angeles. Yesterday when we were talking, I looked and I said, boy, Ben, The view out your window is a lot different than the view out my window. 75 degrees Fahrenheit, beautiful blue skies, just got off a walk on the beach. But then Ben and I got into the Los Angeles Lakers welcoming LeBron James back. So here's my conversation with Ben Golliver. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, Paul Serb. Pleased to be joined by Washington Post NBA analyst Ben Golliver. Ben, happy Thanksgiving. Great to have you back.
Oh, thanks so much. Right back at you. Great to be back.
So tonight, the very hot LA Lakers. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to start off with this. I was going to save it for a bit later. I've got my new award, and I go back to when you were with Sports Illustrated. We talk about, we know that the apocalypse is upon us.
Oh yeah.
I've got a new category, and that's the Bizarro World Awards. And I have the GM of the year, and that's Nico Harrison. Okay. Only he's the GM of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
Because that trade has been so miraculous for the Lakers. And I think it's even been accentuated with the return of LeBron James. And, it's an early sampling for sure, Ben. But out of the gate, what are we, 3 games into LeBron's return? I mean, it's not only been seamless, it's been somewhat spectacular at how much better the Lakers are with him, but how much better the Lakers are in general with fit Luka, with Ayton playing like a guy who actually wants to be on the court, with Rui Hachimura having a career start to the season, and let's not even get into Reeves. But talk about the Lakers. You know them better than anybody.
Well, I think some of it's self-evident, right? I mean, they're at the top of the standings. Luka's playing like an MVP candidate, leading the league in scoring. Reeves is playing like a first-time All-Star. And LeBron so far has bought into this idea that he's not the number 1 guy and he's not the number 2 guy. He's the connector. He's the number 3 guy, focusing more on passing than shooting. And it's really added a nice just boosted their offense even to a higher level and kind of kept everybody involved. It's allowed Luka to just play the same way he's playing. I've never in LeBron's career seen him defer the ball to somebody else to bring it up the court time and time again like he does with Luka. But he's just kind of accepting the role, which is nice to see. I think some of the stuff with the Mavericks is self-evident too, right? I mean, they're plunging down the standings. They have a horrible offense because they don't have anyone to do the things that Luka does. Anthony Davis has missed time, so obviously that kind of made a challenging situation worse. But one hypothetical I haven't seen discussed enough is what happens if the Lakers don't actually pull off this genius trade? If they don't give Nico Harrison your Bizarro GM of the year, they would have potentially started this season with Anthony Davis injured for a full month and LeBron injured for a full month. So we could be sure Austin Reeves would have had some pretty impressive numbers during that time period, but there's no chance that they're at the top of these Western Conference standings. And so, they would have had questions, I think, really building to the point now would have been trade discussion, trade rumors. The Lakers, I think if they had started so injured, not making this trade, they'd probably be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. They might be in kind of the same situation as the Clippers are right now, where you're feeling like the season's already slipping away. So I think it's just one more thing for the Lakers fans to be grateful for here on the Thanksgiving week, right? Is this idea of like, well, the alternate reality, if they don't make this trade, they're an old superstar core. These guys are, injury prone, and they're in a situation where, they don't really have the players to, complement them quite as well. So I think ever since that moment that trade was made, the Lakers have been just cruising, and certainly it's showing through this year. And it sets up an interesting decision, I think, for LeBron. As he comes forward, does he want to retire, or is he having enough fun and they're being competitive enough that he wants to keep going? If he wants to keep going, is he happy in Los Angeles with this sort of tertiary role? I think it fits him really well, especially for this stage of his career. He doesn't have to overtax. So maybe he decides, hey, I'm okay with the Lakers. His other option, of course, would be to explore free agency this summer because he's on an expiring contract. But that's just something to watch longer term here. I think in the short term, the Lakers fans are just really happy to have a contender.
2 quick thoughts on the playing side. From LeBron's standpoint, if he chooses to embrace this, if he allows that ego adaptation, which thus far he has, what an ideal situation for a guy at 40 years old to not have to do the pounding and the physical play out front and feed off the great playmaking ability of Luka in particular, but even Reeves. I mean, he's a good passer, but and LeBron is so smart. He can utilize his basketball IQ in a way, Ben, he's never really had the opportunity to as a player in his long, illustrious, all-time career, to be able to read gaps, find openings, be able to facilitate in a completely different way on a team that has a superstar that can score in ways that, I mean, heck, even LeBron couldn't score like in his best years. Like Luka's just a unique critter in general. So on the playing side, I hope LeBron embraces it, because I can see this extending his career if he chooses to stay in LA. And can you really see at this stage of LeBron's life him being a Cavalier or another team? Like, wouldn't that to me would just have the feeling of somebody just taking their show on the road again, where he's got such a great thing in LA right now. If he stays with it, hopefully even, I mean, they could be right in the thick of it this year for a championship.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think, first of all, it's a reminder that Luka is taking the reins and taking the baton from LeBron in a way that Anthony Davis never did. There was this constant thing in LA, like LeBron's ready to hand the baton, and Anthony Davis just kind of kept on fumbling it. And it's just the nature of his game, right? He's not a creator. He's a play finisher on offense. And in the modern NBA, you need somebody who's creating for himself and for his teammates constantly, right? Like, that is just sort of what drives this offensive explosion era. And Anthony Davis is just built a little bit differently than that. And so that kept a huge burden on LeBron for, really the last 3 seasons, even as he's getting close to 40. That pairing, it just, Davis maybe would miss some time where he wouldn't have as big of a role offensively. LeBron would wear down. He'd get injury issues. And then in the playoffs, he just wouldn't have enough left in the tank. And so this formulation is no question better for LeBron, and it's better for the Lakers. But, you also have to ask, for LeBron, what's the note he wants to end his career on, right? Does he want to sort of be this gracious guy who proves he can play in any role with any combination of teammates? I mean, when was the last time LeBron faced the other team's, second or third best defender, right? I mean, in his prime, it was 1-on-5. You'd have 5 defenders all prepared to try to help and slow him down. And then the Warriors would throw so much attention at him. Now all that attention goes to Luka. LeBron's on the weak side. He gets to operate it and things are a lot easier. Or maybe he gets to run a second unit where, again, he's not dealing with the toughest matchups, and so he can have a bigger impact. I think it makes a lot of sense for him, but it's always hard to read his mind, because the arguments to leave would be, well, the Western Conference is dominated by the Oklahoma City Thunder. You go play for the Cavaliers, maybe you get some more finals appearances. It's an easier path. But I think right now, it's just worth monitoring. It feels like he's in a pretty good headspace. And the balance to the offense has been great. Reeves hasn't had to sacrifice a ton since LeBron came back, which is obviously what you would assume is like something would give, and maybe it would be Reeves, but it hasn't been to a huge degree. And so it just looks very healthy on the offensive end. And their chemistry and camaraderie with the Lakers is better than it's been in years. It was a transition last year. I think there was some frustration after the championship in the bubble. They had the quick turnaround and things just kind of snowballed. They had a lot of turnover with their roster and their core players. It finally feels like they have a mix that's gelling pretty well together. And LeBron just entered back seamlessly. That was a real question. Is this going to work with LeBron after they kind of put together this winning identity without him? And it was like they didn't skip a beat.
Well, and it's such a tribute to LeBron. And again, his acumen, if he chooses to do so, LeBron can pretty much do anything, including be an effective, very good third option. And how scary is that in the NBA to have LeBron James playing really well, even at an advanced age, which he is, and for all intents and purposes, ageless in that respect, but to have him playing really well and embrace this role and be that much more of a weapon for LA and not have that friction. I'm talking with Ben Golliver from the Washington Post here on the Deep Dive on Hoop City. So you mentioned that name, OKC Thunder. I was on another show this morning, and they said, what's it like in the NBA right now with the OKC Thunder? And what I'm curious about what your take would be on this. I said it's kind of like having a really good high school team playing in a junior high league right now. That you've got a team that you look at the way they're playing, and now tonight they have Williams coming back. For God's sakes, a top 10 NBA talent, hasn't even been there for this historic run. And now they're going to be that much stronger in terms of their personnel. Right now, Ben, you look at them and go, who's going to beat these guys?
Well, I think to build on your analogy, it's sort of like one of those basketball factory high schools out in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing else to their life except they're in boarding school, they're going to class, they're playing basketball and practicing, and they're probably waking up at 6 a.m. to clean the dorms, right? Where it's like a very structured, disciplined, almost military-like atmosphere. And then you get them on the court. That's how they play. They have the best defense I've seen, period, in the last 25 years in the NBA. I think when you're looking at all the things that you have to do to deal with modern offenses, to guard star players, take away the three-point line, protect the rim, they have no defensive weakness. And in fact, their defense is so much better than everybody else in the league. There's like this major gap. The last time I checked, the gap between their defense and number 2 was the same as the number 2 defense and number 21, right? So, I mean, they're just kind of lapping everybody else in terms of how they're slowing you down. That allows them to weather bad shooting nights or the very rare off night from Shea, and there has not been very many off nights from Shea this year, but it almost doesn't matter how they perform on offense because their defense is that elite. And yet they have a top 5 offense as well, and they're getting Jalen Williams back this week, finally, from his wrist surgery. And so that's why I wrote a big story this week saying, we really need to be serious about 70 wins here. That is hallowed ground in the NBA. It's the kind of thing where if you talk about it, you jinx it, sort of like a no-hitter or a perfect game in baseball. But everything that the 2016 Warriors were doing when they started off so hot and were able to get the record with 73 wins, when a lot of people didn't think that record was ever going to be broken, the Bulls record, with 72, the Thunder are doing the same thing. They're elite on offense. They're elite on defense. They're super consistent. They have an amazing home court advantage. They're great in third quarters. That was one of the main things with the Warriors is they might kind of screw around for the first half, but in that third quarter, they would blitz you off the court. They'd hit you with like 3 or 4 3-pointers and the game would be over. The Thunder, the last time I checked, had like a plus 30 net rating in third quarters. So it's like, as soon as it's time to get serious, they get so serious. And that allows them to keep the minutes off their main guys in the fourth quarter, which was a real key for the Warriors too. I mean, the big thing back then was joking about, well, when do the ice bags come out, right? When does Steph get to put the ice on his knees and Iguodala, when do they get to ice their knees? And you can kind of pace yourself over the course of the season if you get to rest through the whole fourth quarter. Well, Shea has played 0 minutes in more than half the fourth quarters this season because they just haven't needed him. They've been up by 20 points. And so you put all these things together, their depth, their discipline, the fact that they've done it before, so they have the confidence, in terms of getting to like 68 wins, winning the championship. It's very similar to that 2016 Warriors group, which was coming off a title in 2015. They were flush with confidence. They didn't have any more doubts that they knew how to play, and they intimidate people. And I've seen just a ton of respect this year. I thought last year with the Thunder, it was a lot of whining. Oh, they bait the officials. It was a lot of kind of that pushback. This year, it's been more about just respect rather than begrudging respect or trying to undercut their accomplishments. And in some cases, it's, opposing fan bases just kind of scratching their heads saying, what do we do? And the question I would ask everybody when you're laying out the championship field here, who matches up well with them? Who presents matchup problems for them? And the answer is, well, Nikola Jokic is awesome. That's the only answer I've got. Nobody else in the league creates matchup problems for them. I think the Lakers at full strength would be an interesting matchup just because they have, multiple big players on the perimeter. But even then, I'll trust Oklahoma City's cohesion and young legs. And outside of Denver with Joker, who's obviously going to be a matchup problem for everybody, they just handle your best player very well. When they played the Warriors, Steph Curry really struggled to even get shots off. He was not really a big impact maker. And then you go right down the list from there. I would take them handily over a team like Detroit, which has been a great story, but they're just much further along in the developmental cycle than the Pistons are, and they have way more options. They have 5 different guys they could throw on Cade Cunningham. Right? I mean, it's just an embarrassment of riches. So, it's a good time to be a Thunder fan for sure. And I think if you're a fan of basketball history, and I know you are, there's a real chance that we see the third team ever to win 70 games this season in the NBA, and that would be pretty special.
It really would be special. And if they stay healthy, that certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility, and even breaking the record isn't out of the realm of possibility, Ben. Now, we always know there's always the big asterisk, no matter what team it is, about the big eye injury, how that can change a season. I think back to the 1978 Portland Trailblazers. They were on a tear until Bill Walton got hurt. Now, the Blazers aren't the Thunder. The Blazers of 78 aren't the Thunder, but it completely changed the dynamic of the season. It goes without saying, certainly. Jokic is a matchup problem for anybody. Denver is improved this year, but as they've demonstrated, they still have gaps that the Thunder just don't have. Like you said so eloquently, where do you start with this team? Gilgeous-Alexander has been impeccable. Still, in most people's mind, he's behind Nikola Jokic because of the unreal season he's having, and it is unreal. What Jokic is doing is unreal. What are your thoughts on the kind of new ground that I think this guy is breaking as a point center? God knows what he is, just absolute monster out there in the way he beats you, how he beats you, what he does. It really is incredible to watch, isn't it?
No question. I saw him come here to play the Clippers a couple weeks ago, and he had 25 points in the first quarter. And I looked around and said, "Well, technically, he's on pace to match Wilt here. We should all be getting ready just in case we have to file stories right at the buzzer saying we just witnessed history." And it felt like he could get 100 if he wanted to. He was just in complete command. Let me just say a final point on Oklahoma City in their chase for 70. There's no question Shai's health is like the top priority. Everything changes for them offensively when he's not on the court. But they managed Chet Holmgren missing multiple months last season, and Isaiah Hartenstein, their center, missing multiple months last season, still got to 68. Jalen Williams is a top 15 player, maybe a top 10 player in the NBA this season. He hasn't played a single second yet to this point of the season. And so their depth gives them a nice buffer against a lot of teams. And I think really important to point out, this is a bottom-heavy season. You have a bunch of teams that are tanking because we have such a great draft class, right? There's probably 3, 4, 5 guys who could be franchise changers this year in the draft class. And you have a lot of teams kind of doing the same thing that happened with Golden State in 2016. You look around and say, are we going to beat these guys? No, we're not going to beat these guys. They got, way too much talent. Why don't we go the other direction and try to beat them in 5 years, right? Let's play the tank game. And so that creates a situation where Oklahoma City gets a lot of easy wins along the schedule. And even for teams that aren't intentionally trying to tank, you have a disappointing team in Memphis. You have a disappointing team with the Clippers. You have a disappointing team with the Dallas Mavericks. That's just, it's a weaker conference in the West. It's not as deep, I should say, in terms of contenders. And so that really could help fortify Oklahoma City over the course of the season, where they can kind of keep this machine rolling, because instead of getting really nasty back-to-back, so you got 3 games in 4 nights against all teams that are contenders, you might have one tough game a week that you can really get up for, and you have some other soft ones along the way. So that's why I'm really just encouraging everybody who cares about the history stuff. Keep an eye on these guys. They're 18-1, all-time best point differential to this point. They have a lot of factors in their favor that could help them get up to 70 or potentially beyond. Now, in terms of Jokic, it was a masterclass when I saw him a couple weeks ago. And what was so interesting was the game plan was, even though he's arguably the most skilled scorer in the NBA right now, which I'd say he probably would be. If you need a basket, you need to win one game, you probably start with him, as great as Shai is, right? But the Clippers' game plan was, we're going to let him be a scorer. We're going to take away the assists, and so he had 55 points, and they didn't take away anything. He was scoring from every different, length, at the rim, little push floaters, at the free throw line. He just had a counter for every possible defender that he was going against, any possible defensive look he was going against. And, the Clippers aren't the best team, but that's the most vivid memory I have from him this season. And when they put in a guy like Brook Lopez off their bench because they just needed to fill time and they're hoping to throw a big body on a big body, what Joker did was, he looked at Brook Lopez and he said, I know you're one of these pioneers of the stretch 5. I'm just going to take you outside because you can't stay with me anymore. You're getting a little too old. and I'm just going to shoot 3-pointers right in your eyeball. And he just hit shot after shot after shot over the top of Brook Lopez. And so when you got the tallest guy and the biggest guy, the heaviest guy on the court hitting from 35 feet, at that point, really, what are you supposed to do? And, I think with the questions with Denver, though, Cam Johnson, it was one of those classic Moneyball moves for them of we're going to get rid of Michael Porter Jr. and we're hoping to get like 80% of the production for 50% of the cost. That has not happened. Cam Johnson really hasn't quite, hit the ground running, so to speak. And, you go back to even like his Phoenix tenure, he was not a big impact guy in the big games, the big moments. And there were still some kind of questions about, okay, is he somebody you could really count on in the clutch? And you're going to need all 5 of your starters to be great to beat Oklahoma City. So I think the question there still lingers for Denver. Unfortunately, Aaron Gordon's hurt. He's a major X factor for them. Now, he's not super serious. He will be back. But, of course, you want as much time where they're at full strength and rolling to kind of build up that chemistry as possible. And I think guys like Brown, Murray, and Jokic, you know exactly what you're getting from them. They've played a million games together. So, like you said, they're not as deep. They're not as talented as Oklahoma City, but they were right there with them in last year's playoffs. And I think the key to kind of getting over the hump is Joker's got to be fresher. By the time they get to that series, he was putting a lot of miles, on his tires at the end of last season, just playing huge minutes. They were running him into the ground. It started to show a little bit. And the other key is going to be this Cam Johnson addition. He has got to be a guy where if the ball kicks to him in the corner, he can hit clutch 3-pointers with the series on the line, with the season on the line. He can't be one of these guys who passes out of that shooting opportunity and kind of, kills the possession because he doesn't want the moment. And so far, that's what I would be nervous about if I was a Denver fan, because I'd be saying, well, did we get Joker enough help this offseason? We definitely got more help, right? But did we get him enough help? And, it could also be a team potentially that would want to explore stuff at the trade deadline too, to say, hey, we're one of the very few teams that could push Oklahoma City. Maybe we've got some chips here. Maybe we can manufacture another player or two to kind of bolster this rotation.
Vaping is popular now, but before you light up, know the risks. E-cigarettes can contain harmful substances, including nicotine and chemicals that can damage your lungs. Especially for young people, vaping can lead to addiction, impacting brain development and overall health. Cases of serious lung illness have been linked to vaping. Protect yourself and those around you by understanding the risks. Don't let a trend jeopardize your future. Make an informed choice.
A little ice and snow can't stop your Canadian spirit, especially when you start at the Lawnmower Hospital. Come find a wide selection of top-performing snowblowers, sweepers, and backpack blowers from the best names in snow removal, like Toro, Ariens, Echo, and BCS. Don't forget to pick up pet-safe, plant-safe ice melt, along with Aspen Fuel to keep you clearing. The Lawnmower Hospital. Visit lawnmowerhosp.com.
The Lawnmower Hospital.
Crowd rolling and goal silence keeps you going, but it doesn't always keep you winning. The season is in full swing. The battles are tough. The hits are unflinching, and your gear is feeling it. Don't let worn-down equipment hold you back in the third period. St. Albert Source for Sports is here to make sure your gear is always ready to play as hard as you do. Keep your edge with the experts at St. Albert Source for Sports. Our Pro Sharp approved technicians will get your skates back to game-winning condition. Busted a blade or cracked a stick? From expert skate repairs to the latest gear, St. Albert Source for Sports has what it takes to keep you in the game and playing your best. From the first face-off to the final showdown. Stay strong all season long and keep your head in the game, not on your gear. Visit St. Albert Source for Sports today. St. Albert Source for Sports, your source for hockey, bikes, baseball, and more for over 36 years.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir. Josh Fenwick here on Sports 1440. How could we have the 1968 crooners not have the king, Elvis Presley, with Burnin' Love? as part of our playlist today. Let's go back to my conversation with Ben Golliver on our deep dive on this week's show. You know, it's interesting that you talk about the mileage on Joker, because as superhuman as he is, as unbelievable as his performances have been, we are in the first quarter of the season, and it's the mileage at the end of the season, which, to your point about OKC and being able to rest SGA for long periods of time, whole quarters, and the weakened Western Conference, those are all really valid points. I think one of the thoughts in Denver would be that Valanciunas would be able to come in and spell Joker effectively, and I think Jonas can, to be honest. But here's the question, and I'm kind of segueing this over to Steve Kerr's comments, Ben, about injuries in the NBA, because you're hitting on the key element here, I think, too. A reasonably rested Jokic going into the playoffs, that might change the balance a little bit versus a banged up, overused Jokic going in. And my point is this: Kerr talks about, shortening the season, all valid considerations about the mileage that players put on today compared to what they used to put on in terms of defending. But to me, part of it is how coaches coach. At certain junctures, coaches have to go a kind of anti-Tom Thibodeau. He'll play you 49 minutes out of 48 if he can. If he feels he needs to, he'll do that every night. But a lot of coaches play their stars so much through the year when at times they just need to put the other guys in and let them go and learn how to live with the results, so they don't the mileage doesn't add up quite as rapidly throughout the course of the regular season. Easier said than done, I realize. But I think a lot of it does come down. I don't think the NBA has ever been deeper, and certainly there's no Jokic substitution. But what are your thoughts on that, on the usage rate that a player like Jokic, that a coach has to look at Jokic and say, you know what, I got to sit you for 10 to 12 minutes a game?
Well, first of all, I think that they have really liked Jonas there in Denver. I think that's a great point. I mean, from a chemistry fit, personality fit, all that kind of stuff, it's just his talent level. They've missed a guy in that spot for years and years and years. I mean, they had a nice, locker room guy in DeAndre Jordan, but maybe not quite the same player that Jonas can be right now. Right. But, I think last season is a perfect example of this dilemma you're talking about with the coaches. You're Michael Malone. The season's starting to slip. Your choices are keep playing Joker and maybe save your job, or trust some young guys who you've never trusted for years. And if you lose some games, they're going to fire you. Well, I know which way I would go. I'd probably be trusted Joker. You're seeing a similar thing with the Clippers right now, right? With James Harden. He's like their only consistent contributor. He props up the entire team. Kawhi Leonard's been in and out of the lineup. Bradley Beal's already out for the season. So your options are, try to work some younger guys into the rotation, see what they can give you. That's okay. But if you take James Harden off the court, the offense falls to pieces. So what do? Well, you run up James Harden's minutes and you risk an injury there. That, it's sort of a ticking time bomb situation. So it's very challenging for these teams that don't have the depth. Once again, nobody's doing it better than Oklahoma City. Jalen Williams is out. They don't have to rush him back because they have a developmental pipeline where AJ Mitchell is just ready to go. And he's had a great breakout season, arguably the most improved player. He's doing all this stuff that he didn't even have a chance to do last season. And, even Isaiah Joe, I would say, has taken a step forward for Oklahoma City. And so they have learned to manage the minutes. And by the way, Shea has played his lowest minutes this season since his rookie year. So you talk about advantage going into a potential matchup in the playoffs where Shea is completely rested. Joker's probably going to have a little bit more of a burden because of their lack of depth, even with Valanciunas. That could be something that kind of, swing things a little bit. Another factor to consider here, though, is the idea of the race for the 2 seed. I'm starting to hear from a lot of different teams where it's like, okay, we saw Oklahoma City win the conference last year by 16 games. So just kind of assume that they're going to do that again. when do you want to play Oklahoma City? Well, obviously you would love to have the 2 seed so you could delay that matchup as long as possible. Maybe you get lucky, something goes wrong for them and they go out early, right? Well, Denver's going to be highly motivated to get that 2 seed because last year they kind of screwed around at the end of the season, didn't get it, and had to play Oklahoma City in the second round, right? The Lakers, obviously, they would love to delay the Oklahoma City matchup as long as possible because it's going to be a tough head-to-head showdown for them, right? So you could actually see some of these coaches running up minutes on their guys again in pursuit of the 2 seed because they feel like that's in their best interest to try to win a championship. So I think, it's a very challenging situation for a coach to manage, right? To understand where's the right number at, how can you work in rest days? How can you avoid the overuse? And I think the players who have really come out on top in recent years have been the guys who are the most durable. Joker has this just uncanny durability that keeps him on the court. And Shea has done a great job of managing his style of play, just taking care of his body, making sure that he's ready to go. And he's been on the court a lot. And that's really kind of what's kept them in it. So, I think there's a lot of truth to what Steve Kerr says. I mean, to me, it's kind of self-evident. If you're running around at a faster pace, covering more ground, you're liable to have more soft tissue injuries. Seems completely logical. The only way to undo those injuries is to slow the game down or to reduce the amount of three-pointers that are being taken. We don't see anything in the trends that suggest it's going to go that direction, right?
That ain't happening.
Yeah. So you just kind of have to pace yourself and add depth, right? The Pacers had a ton of success last year by, going 10 deep. I think another team that's interesting, it's not a top-heavy team, but they are winning a little bit with depth this year and bounce scoring, is the Toronto Raptors, a little bit of a surprise team. Again, where it's like, hey, we don't have to put everything on one guy's shoulders, right? Brandon Ingram can get 20, but we don't need him to get 30. We don't need him to have the huge usage rate because Scotty Barnes is there, because Quickly is there, because RJ is there to kind of, carry the load a little bit. I think that formula is working pretty well for a lot of teams, right? It's not like there's only one way to do it. I mean, we still see Luka with a huge usage playing the way he wants to play. But I think that some of these teams that are popping up here are the teams that are deep and they're balanced and they're able to kind of, keep the huge amount of wear and tear off any one guy.
I'm talking to Ben Golliver from the Washington Post here on the deep dive on Hoop City. Ben, you make such a great point about usage, about Luka playing heavy minutes, but playing the way Luka plays. Part of the injury quotient, I think, is exactly that, is playing at the pace that you want to play at and being able to control the pace in the way that you want to control the pace. And Luka and Jokic do that along with Shea. Those three do it better than anybody that I've ever really seen, because a lot of the times they're not playing vertically. They're playing horizontally and they're playing at their pace, controlling their defender and controlling the way they want to play and how they want to get to the basket. Luka, for instance, holds on to the ball. Probably, I would guess his hanging on to the ball is more than anybody in the league. I would guess that. Right now, I haven't looked at that stat, but he can do that because of the way he controls his defender with his body, and he doesn't rely on jumping over people to score. I think that's one of the aspects of the NBA that's made it as entertaining as I've seen for a long, long time to watch this year, is we truly are seeing a variety of styles of play, both by individual players, but also by teams. We're not seeing the same formula in every team that seemed to be getting more and more generic. Small ball, got to shoot tons of threes. That's still all happening, but the way it's happening is different.
No question.
And I think that's another OKC carryover, is they've done such a remarkable job of taking their talent, and of course they got a ton of it, and a lot of it in a lot of players, but adapting their system to their talent. I see that as a real trend in the NBA, and I think that's hugely positive for the watchability of the NBA.
There's no question about it. I mean, first of all, I think we've seen a shift from, just on your point with Shea and Joker and Luka, we've seen a shift from pure athleticism to touch and feel over these last few years when it comes to superstar level players. Athleticism gives at a certain point. Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, those guys, they're sort of hitting walls in the middle of their career because they can't play the same way and stay healthy over the course of an entire season. Launching yourself at the rim, 15 times a game, it's not sustainable, right? And Luka, Joker, and Shea just don't have that problem. It's a more ground-bound style like you're describing. It's more subtle. You're operating with the scalpel, not the chainsaw, and they're able to get it done. And this season, thankfully, have been pretty healthy. On the stylistic diversity point, it's an excellent one. I think when you go back to the Warriors of 2016, that era, everybody rushed to copy them because of the math. And they started to realize, look, if they're going to outshoot us, we have no chance to keep up here unless we dramatically increase our three-point shot. So we have to get really creative, space the court, put 1 million players on the court. Everybody has to shoot threes. Otherwise, you're just dead in the water. That was the response to Golden State's offense. I think what you're seeing with Oklahoma City's defense, it is so rare to get professional players to play as hard as they do, as disciplined as they do, and as together as they do. If I'm a coach of a rival team, I'm looking at Oklahoma City and saying, I can't mimic this. There's no way for me to do this. They've built up this infrastructure with the G League team and the kinds of guys they've drafted, certain personality characteristics. They've built this identity really over the last 7 years, probably, if not longer, right, to get to the point where they are. You can't just, snap your fingers and say, we're going to play defense like Oklahoma City in the NBA. It's never going to happen. It's just on a consistent basis, not possible. And so what you're seeing is the coaches have to get more aggressive. So Eric Spoelstra saying, well, guess what? We're just not going to run pick and roll anymore. We're just going to drive at the rim, spread everybody out, and we're going to play as fast as humanly possible. You're seeing Portland say, well, we're going to do full court pressing. That's going to be one of our little, twist to things and see how well that works. And some of these experiments, by the way, haven't worked. Like Portland, half their roster's injured, right? I mean, their style of play that they wanted to, I call it 48 minutes of hell, like the old Nolan Richardson thing. I mean, they're really trying to pressure you and make you uncomfortable, backcourt turnovers, inbound violations. Like that's really what they're going for. And it was a beautiful sight to see for a couple of weeks. Then half their team got hurt. So, okay, now what do you do? So I think there's a lot of experimentation going on right now because people are looking at this Oklahoma City defense and saying, hey, we can't copy this. We can't even do a poor man's impression of it.
Well, and I love the 48 minutes of hell. I think back to Rick Pitino when he went to the Celtics and he was going to throw the full court press in and he was going to trap and do all that stuff. It lasted about 5 minutes. I mean, when you have Antoine Walker, who never ever believed that defense was a part of the game, you're not going to get buy-in from players like that. But the fact that coaches are willing to experiment, I think that's extremely healthy for the league. But I also think, again, net impact. Oklahoma City, as you point out so well, they play so hard and they play so well together. You can play as hard as Oklahoma City. You may not be as good, but you can match their effort. That's a choice. Yeah. And you can play together to the best of your ability like Oklahoma City does, as long as you're enabled by your coaching staff with a style that suits your personnel. That's what I like. I think the example that you made of everybody trying to imitate the Warriors when they weren't capable of it, but it gave the pocket pencil analytics guys down in their basements the opportunity to say, hey, statistically, we got to all do this. And look at the result. A lot of bad shooting teams were taking way too many threes and underperforming and never, ever reaching anything close to what the Golden State Warriors did, who, by the way, still were running actions and taking mid-range shots in the midst of all the threes. Kerr's way too good of a coach to have abandoned that completely. But I did want to segue again to another coach that you mentioned, and that's Spoelstra. If anybody ever doubted how great a coach Eric Spoelstra is, they have to eat their words now, finally, because the guy is a great coach. I think historically he's a great coach. But the way he's adapted his team, again, suits his personnel, and it's bringing out such great things from the talent that he has. It's made Miami a much more compelling team in the league, in the East, and a tough team to beat night in and night out.
Well, I get a lot of things wrong over the years, but back in 2011, I said Eric Spoelstra should be the next coach of USA basketball because he understands how to coach defense. He understands how to connect with superstars. He understands how to build a locker room, and he has the right basketball values in terms of all the heat culture stuff that we talked about. And, as it turned out, they went to Popovich and then Kerr, and now they've gotten around to Spoelstra finally here, more than 10 years later. But I think he's the right type of guy, the right personality to run that program. And, this Miami situation was very interesting. I think it's a great example of being self-aware. Miami is coming into the season, or they're doing their offseason planning, and they're like, look, we even in a weak Eastern Conference, we don't have the top end talent to keep up with the best teams in this conference, right? Especially like New York or Cleveland, who are coming back on paper as the best teams, right? Miami, they lose Jimmy Butler. They're kind of waiting for their next superstar. It's the perfect time to experiment. It's because there's nothing to lose. It's like, okay, well, if you have a sub 500 season this year, it's not the end of the world. You're kind of a way station for superstars. Guys always want to go play there. You're just kind of sort of waiting for the next guy who wants to get there. And so how do you best use that time? How is that time the best well spent? And they looked at the players that they were able to bring in, like a Norman Powell from the Clippers, and they said, well, we got a lot of potential scoring talent here. Even if we don't have a superstar like A-list lead guy, let's design a system that turns all of these B-plus offensive players into an A group, right? Where it's like, we're just kind of coming at you from every side. It's going to be very difficult. I actually happen to be a little skeptical of what they're doing. I think it's a little gimmicky,
It is.
Because you get into a playoff matchup, the team's ready for it, the game slows down. I think some of the advantages they're creating are going to come back to earth a little bit. But especially when they don't have Tyler Hero because of an injury to start the season, this is exactly what they needed. It's something to kind of prop up these loose pieces and turn them into a group. And on top of it, it's been really fun to watch, because, literally it's not even 7 seconds or less. It's like 4 seconds or less, they're running off of inbound passes from the sideline. And it's just like, they're trying to get up ahead of steam and pushing it. They're running off of other teams' makes and trying to beat you down the court and create advantage there. A guy like Jaime Jaquez has really rediscovered his impact on games. And, he just wants to put his head down. And sometimes he almost looks like a poor man's Giannis. It's just like doing whatever he possibly can to bull rush to the rim. So this is fun stuff. Again, how substantive is it? I don't know. I just don't think if they were trying to do what OKC was doing, or, they're trying to copy what the Warriors formula from the past, it's not going to take them any further, right? And so why not experiment, see what does work, and then in future years, maybe you keep some of these same elements as you go forward. And, of course, now we wait to see, does anybody copy their strategy, right? Are there any other teams that are saying, hey, this looks pretty fun. It's working for them. It's putting a lot of strain on opposing teams' defenses. Maybe we should try out never doing pick and rolls and just completely zagging where everybody else is going the other way,
You can listen to the complete discussion and conversation with Ben Golliver on our podcast, on the Deep Dive podcast that will be posted on your favorite podcast provider after the show today. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to go into closing time here on the Hoop City Deep Dive on Sports 1440.
Sleep is for the off-season. What off-season? Sports 1440 is live, loud, and locked 24/7. Oilers, Elks, Riverhawks, Stingers, Oil Kings, we've got your fix. Edmonton's home for sports is Sports 1440.
This month in Sports History Moment is brought to you by Discount Diesel Parts.
November 17th, 1987. The Olympic Flame began an 88-day, 18,000-kilometer journey from Signal Hill, Newfoundland to the Calgary Winter Games. Over 7,000 Canadians took turns carrying the torch during its cross-country trek. The Olympics were held in Calgary from February 13th to 28th, 1988.
Hi, folks. This is Big Al from Discount Diesel Parts. With over 70 years' experience, Interstate McBee is a leader in the heavy-duty diesel engine parts industry. And as an authorized dealer for over 20 years, we've been serving customers with those high-quality parts. Gasket kits, water and oil pumps, turbos, fuel injectors, heads, in-frame kits, and at a great price, too. Reach us at discountdiesel.ca and know that Discount Diesel's got the parts to get it done.
Across rural Alberta, volunteers and community groups work hard to make life better for their neighbors, creating new playgrounds, better rinks, and gathering places that bring us together. Vision Credit Union is proud to lend these local heroes a helping hand. Apply today for a Helping Hand grant up to $10,000 to support your community's next big idea. Let's make great things happen together. Applications are open until January 31st, 2026. Learn more at whatsyourshare.ca.
It's like a locker room, minus the smell.
Ew.
Kevin Karius brings the banter, the buzz, and the bold sports talk. Weekday mornings from 7 to 11 on Sports 1440, Edmonton's home for sports. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to Closing Time here on Hoop City. Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick with you on Sports 1440. Josh, first thing, let's talk about the poll update. We had an unusual question about the greatest big guy of all time. I'm really curious to hear what our listeners have been saying.
Yeah, so the question was, who's better, Wilt, Bill Russell, Nikola Jokic, or Hakeem Olajuwon? No action for Bill Russell. 0% of the votes went to Bill Russell. 25% of the votes go to Nikola Jokic. 25% of the votes go to Hakeem Olajuwon, and 50% of the votes went to Wilt Chamberlain.
My goodness, our listeners have I've always held you in the highest of esteem, but I applaud you for what I think is the right answer. Josh, how would you have voted?
I am one of the votes, and no disrespect to anyone else on this list. However, Hakeem Olajuwon is such a curious kid. He was so defensively and offensively minded that, like, and the footwork is incredible. Like, I've tried to make the case before that Hakeem Olajuwon is the best center of all time or the most underrated Hall of Famer of all time, and people don't want to listen to me when I talk about that, but that's a different discussion for a different day.
Well, though, I do agree with you in terms of, from my vantage point, I would say it was the best footwork of all time.
Without a doubt.
In the post. So he and Kevin McHale were the masters of footwork. Hakeem did bring variety to the game. I think he did things that no other post player had done in the way that he did them, with his variety of the dream shake. For those who watched Hakeem, when I say the dream shake, just his ability to use a variety of quick movements before putting the ball on the floor, then going to the basket. Beautiful fadeaway, great mid-range jumper. I would love to have seen Hakeem in this era, because I have no doubt he would have been a very effective three-point shooter. But I will go back to my complimenting our listeners in naming Wilt as the greatest of all time, because in my mind, there's no argument about it, just simply because of the volume of work that he did and the dominance at a time. He was a man amongst boys, a giant among humans, certainly, but he also had a great feel and a great competitive spirit for the game. And for him to be able to put the dominant performances he put together night after night, year after year, finally getting his due and winning a championship in Los Angeles and in Philadelphia, Wilt Chamberlain, to me, was a great choice. So kudos to our listeners. Today, the 3x3 final event of the year, the FIBA 3x3 AmeriCup, continues in León, Mexico. Yesterday, the Canadian men, who are seeded third, won both of their games. They play tomorrow against the Dominican Republic, and that, if they take care of business, is a winnable game. That they will square off in the semifinals against Puerto Rico, who they lost to by one last year to go to the gold medal game. I hope that is certainly a game that takes place. Steve Sir, who was with us last week, had led the tournament, is leading the tournament in scoring after 2 games. And then today, we have the women's team, the number 1 seed Canadian Canada basketball women's team playing at 3:50 p.m. and 7:20 p.m. You can watch all of the games on the FIBA3x3.com website. Everything's live streamed. Great broadcast. And we'll see our women square off today. And I think it's fair to say, Josh, this is an inevitable clash in the finals between the number 1 ranked Canadian women and the number 2 ranked American women. And that will also happen tomorrow and will be very, very entertaining, as long as it always has to be the case, the Canadian women, as we think they will take care of business. Teams and players to watch this week. I want to throw a couple of out at you. First, at the NCAA level, because of our proximity to Spokane, Washington, I'd encourage everybody to watch the Gonzaga Bulldogs this year. The men's team is very, very good, and I think they are surprising a lot of people as they set themselves up now to be in the conversation as one of those teams that you better watch out for when March Madness comes around. So we get to watch Spokane quite a bit. Also, let's watch the Lakers this week and see if they can continue their hot streak. And then if Williams and OKC and LeBron and the Lakers continue to fit back into their teams. Every week at this time, I remember my son, Ben, who passed away far too early. And our hearts ache every day as we miss Ben in our lives, as well as many of his friends and family and people that knew Ben miss him as well. Ben had to battle a lot of demons, things that were thrust into his life that he didn't ask for. And for people who have trauma in their families and in their lives, they know of which I speak. And to all people, make sure you're kind to your fellow man. Make sure you think the best of them. And make sure, for goodness sakes, for those who are in your lives that mean a lot to you, tell them you love them every day if you have to, because you have no idea how fragile life is until you lose somebody. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. Great, great guests. My gosh, I think Jeff has a brilliant future. Jeff Pippas over at the University of Alberta, the great Scott Edwards. His number 2 ranked Pandas squaring off again tonight in Winnipeg as well. Alan Horton, of course, from the Timberwolves, bringing us up to date on what's going on in Minnesota, and then Ben Golliver in the deep dive. Check us out on our podcasts. As I said, on your favorite podcast provider, we've got the deep dive and Hoop City coming your way. Josh Fenwick, thank you so much for all your work this week.
Thanks for taking me on the ride, Paul. I look forward to next week's work.
Can't wait for next week already. To all of you out there, have great weeks on and off the court. It's getting colder, getting snowier. Drive carefully. And we'll be talking hoops with you next weekend again here on Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.